Hello. So, I did one of these about 2 weeks ago. I think it was like the 9th. So that would actually be more like 10 days. No, 11th? Well, whatever. It was, after the big release of OpenGL, the Open Gaming License, 1.1, as Wizards of the Coast tends to put it, the draft version, even though it didn't say draft anywhere on it. And people were forced to sign it, or at least they tried really hard to get them to sign it. But some things have happened in the time since. Lots of things. So, we do have quite a lot to talk about. Yeah. So, first one is the one you see on the screen right now. Paizo announced their system-neutral open RPG license. The idea is that a neutral body actually holds the license. It would be created by a whole slew of different TTRPG publishers. So, there's a framework to use to create more games. But, past that point, the actual, holder of the license is a neutral party that doesn't have any footing in the game. So, the idea behind that is that, unlike what we're gonna see when I get to the new OGL 1.2 draft, there's no, what they would call a partial body that is in charge of maintaining the license. Which is one of the big issues with OGL 1.2. So yeah, they go into it quite a bit. I'm not gonna go too far. They're getting legal guidance from Azora Law, which is a law firm that Paizo works with. And you can actually sign up to help the effort, providing feedback on the drafts of the license. They also mention that they're working with a bunch of fellow publishers. But yeah, they also do say that they didn't believe that Wizards of the Coast can actually revoke the original OGL. And they do say they would take them to court over that. So that is a good point, definitely. I really wonder what their internal discussions are like as Wizards of the Coast keeps putting out stuff. So, the next thing that happened was that Wizards of the Coast had Kyle Brink, who, as you can see down here, is the executive producer of Dungeons & Dragons. Maybe I should make this slightly bigger for you guys. Maybe that's a little bit easier to read. I don't know how the text is gonna work for you guys. But, yeah. There's a new announcement, and they've already updated this one when I switched PCs to include this. Yeah. It says executive producer on DnD, though he was only hired about 3 months ago. And he doesn't really have anything to do with the legal, conditions that the game runs in. That's not really what they pay him to do. But he's going to take one for the team and be their spokesperson, apparently, for all these. He talks about how, again, and I hate this term, This term needs to die. Okay, I have to mention it. I know I just did, but, stewards of the game, we don't need stewards of D&D. I don't believe we actually need a party deciding who can make, D&D related products. Like, who could make Pathfinder or my own Celestia RPG? We don't need a body or a group or even a person that is the steward of who gets to create what. That is not at all what we need. But he talks about the path forward, and he starts with an apology, which sounds fine. He says he's sorry, they got it wrong. Protecting and cultivating an inclusive play environment. Smokescreen. Giant smokescreen. That is not what they're trying to do. They're trying to get control, which is what they don't have with OGL 1.0. So yeah. They say now, to do a better job, they're going to be open and transparent, which is why we now have the 1.2 draft, which I'm going to show you guys in a bit. And they talk about how they're going to do something like they do with the Unearthed Arcana and 1D&D playtests, where we're going to be able to submit feedback. Now, there's a bit of a controversy with that, which is that there were some internal people that said that no one reads the direct feedback. They read the numbers, and they don't really tend to read, like, any of the paragraph-long, feedback that we give them. And apparently, the way it was originally said was a bit wrong. It's that they literally don't have enough of a team to read 20,000 comments. Which says a lot more about, maybe they should have hired someone or a group of someones to come in and deal with all the feedback. But instead, they were just condensing it down. They would get the numbers from the different, survey questions, and that was really it. That was all they were really looking at. Now, they've said, several of them, that they do look at that stuff. But I am going to say I seriously doubt they looked at 40,000 comments, which is actually what it was on the last UA survey for 1D&D. They got 40,000 replies. Now, easily, the numbers, that's super easy. You can get the PC to do all the work for you. Every time there's a response, it goes into a database, and it spits something out at the end when you ask it to. That's super easy. What is not easy is looking at each of the paragraphs of text we send them. Yeah. So, I totally expect that they probably aren't going to read every single comment. Now, they promise they do, but I don't see it. From what it sounds like, they have a team of 6 to 10 people that goes through all that. So, let's go out on a limb and say it's 10 people. 40,000 comments to be read and sorted in some way by 10 people. So, figuring each one gets an equal number, that is 4,000 comments for each of the 10 people to read. I think my eyes would cross. Instead, it sounds, and I mean, there were hints at this, they would just prefer that people shared their thoughts on the forum rather than clogging up forums and online discussion threads. And I have totally heard that before from different companies that have like forums and like interactive conversations between players, like with a always-on game, for instance. They'll do like feedback stuff, surveys and that, but they really don't like comments on what they're doing with the game. And as it specifically laid out, they called us all armchair gamers, which is how a lot of, like, computer game companies tend to think about a lot of their players. Even if we have quite the background. So, yeah, that's what they talk about, wanting to do it that way, getting it out before the 20th, which is today. And, yeah, I had stuff to do yesterday, which is why this didn't come out then. But, yeah. And they say the survey will remain up for at least 2 weeks. Though this just seems like a good excuse for them to delay having to talk about anything. Because as long as they have this going on, they can do whatever they want behind the scenes and let the general public go back to normal. It's a delay tactic meant to make us back into good consumers of their products. And they say that it will have no impact on at least these creative efforts, video content, which was never up for debate. It would affect mine only because I wanted to release the stuff I was creating for my custom campaign. That's the only reason it would affect me, but it wouldn't affect my videos. It actually would probably more now that I'm switching from using 5e to my own Celestia RPG, since some things aren't finished yet for mine. Like, I'm still definitely using monsters that appear in, the normal D&D sources. Accessories owned. Things like minis, novels, apparel, dice. Yeah, that was also never on the floor here. They don't have any right to access those, though they did try in the original text of 1.0. Non-published works. And, for instance, contracted services. Like, if I got someone to do art for Celestia RPG. The way it was, they were trying to claim that as well. But they say it won't now. We'll get into how that's going to work. But, yeah, they also say paid deeming services, something I've looked into. I literally have no idea what I would do for that now. But I was looking into it because, sources of money. I kind of need those as a small creator. I don't know anyone that does D&D consulting. I'm not even sure that's a thing. Maybe at some sort of level it is. Like if I got paid to help someone, even though I do my own stuff, Maybe I would be a consultant. I'm not sure that's a real job, though. They talk about VTT content, that it would allow them to create and publish content on VTTs and allow VTT publishers to use OGL content on their platforms. We'll see if they keep their word on that. DM's Guild content, again, never up for question. That falls under a different license, always has. It's pretty restrictive. They say it won't affect anything originally published under the OGL 1.0A. Yeah, they didn't live up to this at all. We'll get into it, though. There's more things we have to talk about before we get there. Revenue. There will be no royalty or financial reporting requirements. And again, we'll see if they actually live up to that. And ownership of your content. And they say there will be no license back requirements. And that is actually true, but it's a bit weird how they do it. Yeah, we'll get into that more when we get to it. But let's jump back to Paizo. They were contacted, and let's see, that's the 19th. 7 days, 1 week, by 1,500 tabletop RPG publishers. From household names to single proprietors just starting out with their own first digital release. And if I had working hands on my model, I'd be raising my own right here. I didn't pledge my support yet, mostly because I started mine before they got into this. And because of that, it wasn't an option originally. And I could still release it under the OpenRPG, but I want to see what that looks like first. But yeah, a lot of people are now on board, and it makes sense. Obviously, Alchemy RPG, and I assume that means the VTT, the virtual tabletop. Maybe not. I can't really tell. I know there are some virtual tabletops in here, like Foundry VTTP. I'm looking for the other ones I know. I don't see Tailspire, though that one I do own. Roll20 is totally in here, so that's another VTT. And I've had some people complain about my stance that the OGL 1.2 doesn't directly affect VTTs, and we'll get to that. I will give you my thoughts once we get there. But yeah, definitely a lot of names that I recognize in here. Obviously, Paizo, Monty Cook Games, I know Green Ronin, The Griffin Saddlebag, Kobold Press, actually Gale Force 9, I know them. Even a miniature company, Epic Miniatures. So yeah, a lot of people. Obviously, Azora Law, we already talked about them. Evil Genius Games, too. I do know them as well. I'm sure there's some others I should recognize. And it's just because I'm looking over it briefly that I don't notice them being big names. Well, there's more miniatures. Alright, so yesterday, Kyle came back to D&D Beyond, and he put out their new listing. The first thing they did, and we'll see this in the actual documents. The core D&D mechanics were released to the community through the Creative Commons license. Actually, the same one that Celestia RPG is using. And here's the kicker. You can't actually copyright the core D&D mechanics. You can copyright some aspects of how the terminology is worded. Things like that. You can trademark names, which is a little bit different than copyright. And I'm not going to get into the differences right now. But yeah, for pretty much the same reasons, though they do limit this. I'll actually show you when we get to the next part where I actually look at the document. And then they say if you want to use the quintessential D&D content from the SRD, such as owlbears or magic missiles, you need to use the Open Gaming License 1.2. And they call it a perpetual, irrevocable license. And, yeah, if he believes that line of crap, I don't know what to tell him, because it specifically says that it is not the case. But we'll get into that in a second. Yeah, they do describe what Creative Commons is. Sure, I'm all for Creative Commons. I used to do a lot of photography, and I would release photos under the Creative Commons license. Usually the ones that allowed derivative works. You know, they just have to credit me, because, you know, my photo. But it's the same pretty much with the license I'm using for Celestia RPG. And for the same reasons. But again, they're back to this line about hateful content and allowing them to address it. Now, they didn't use the line about stewardship here. That always annoys the heck out of me. But, yeah, I'm gonna get more into that when we get into the stuff. I don't think there's any need for them to do that. They have other methods than creating the OGL 1.2 to handle those things. And second, it only applies to published TTRPG content. And then they say including VTTs. But VTTs barely get a note. And I'll show you how that is. And why there's a big issue about VTTs at the moment. So, what's not in there? No royalty payment yet. No financial reporting yet. No license back yet. No registration yet. No distinction between commercial and non-commercial yet. And I'll get into why I keep saying yet. They definitely are not including that word. Nothing will impact any content you have already published under the OGL 1.0A. Liar! Total liar! Your pants should be on fire. Yeah. That will always be licensed under OGL 1.0A. Yeah, your document doesn't support that, buddy boy. So, we're gonna get into that more. Yeah, I love this line they keep using, and they have over and over. They put controlling who can make D&D content under protecting D&D's inclusive play experience. Now, I've had people argue that they would trust Wizards of the Coast to protect us from people like Gygax, who weren't the best people. He didn't think a lot of women. or like anyone who wasn't white, as far as I've heard. I don't know. That is just what I've heard. But people definitely believe that, and that Wizards of the Coast would stop people like that from creating content. And I have a discussion there for later. But yeah, that is just terminology for we wish to retain absolute control over who gets to work with our content, even if we release it to be used by other people. And I'll get into why it's not exactly theirs in a second. Then they go into TTRPGs and virtual tabletops. It will only apply to TTRPG content, whether published as books, electronic publications, or on virtual tabletops. But your OGL specifically says VTTs fall under a different policy. So again, you have just lied to us. In the same document that you're going to give us, the OGL 1.2 draft. Deauthorizing the OpenGL 1.0. We know this is a big concern, and the Creative Commons license and the open terms of 1.2 are intended to help out with that. One key reason we have to deauthorize. We can't use the protective options in 1.2 if someone can just choose to publish harmful, discriminatory, or illegal content under 1.0. Yeah, remember. Where is it exactly? This right here. Your OGL 1.0 content. Nothing will impact any content you have published under the OGL 1.0. That's a little bit different here than just a couple days later, where you're deauthorizing it yet again. Very limited license changes allowed. No, it is not terribly limited. And I'll show you exactly why when we get to the document. So, they do mention that there is a specific virtual tabletop policy. However, I can't actually find it anywhere. Just because I definitely need to explain this, they link here to what should be virtual tabletop policy, but that link just goes to wizards.com. In fact, I'll show you right now. Wizards.com. Yeah. So I'm not sure what terms they have in their virtual tabletop policy. It is not included here. Just a fact at the end of the OGL 1.2 draft. They talk about ownership disputes. Sorry, I tried to cut that off before you had to hear me. They got rid of the license back, which would require them to own everything that you make for anything related to D&D. Yeah, they have some definite words over ownership disputes and who can sue for breach of contract and money damages. And I'll show you that. We'll talk about it. No hateful content or conduct. And that's the tricky one. We're going to talk a lot about this because most people don't seem to understand several aspects of this. And then they show creative product badges. Yeah, we don't really need fancy little badges. I'm saying this as someone who used to make campaign materials made for 5e. So, giving good faith creators the same level of freedom. Yeah, total lies. Alright. I already have the draft up, so we're gonna look at that. And we're still missing some new things. The SRD 5.1, at least I don't see it anywhere. Maybe it's here somewhere. Oh, I guess it is. What is that from? Is this the one from before? Sorry, I should have looked this up earlier. Okay, well. I'll double check it. Actually, let me see. I should have... No, I don't have it in here. I thought I had it in my downloads. Give me 1 second and I'll see if I can figure it out. Because I definitely have it, the earlier copy, when I was looking at what was included in the SRD. So. Oh, I guess the version I had was 5.1. Okay, weird. I think the earlier text was talking about a new version. So I've gotten confused. But, yes, we figured it out. That is not a new one. And I still want to know where the VTT policy is. In fact. Yeah, they talk about it several places. Yeah, like, this is just from a day ago. Because they don't really have the policy shown anywhere as of yet. At least not that I can find. I still can't find a document that is the actual VTT policy. Yeah. And they talk about, when the reporting period is. I don't really care about any of that. So let's jump over here. Page 1, this page here. That is pretty much useless. It just gives us the table of contents. An entire page wasted out of 6. I think we could have figured it out. This is the introduction. They show us the fancy badges that you could use. There's even a style guide, but it doesn't actually go anywhere, so you can't look at that yet either. You can look at D&D Beyond, or the DM's Guild, or the fan content policy, or even the Creative Commons license, the same one I have in text form on my website. Yeah. Open Game License 1.2 doesn't go anywhere. The Virtual Tabletop Policy, well, they go to Wizards of the Coast, but nowhere specific. Just like these. And here, slapped onto page 2, is the Notice of Deauthorization of the OGL 1.2, saying that anything made after the date this goes live, anything published can no longer be published under 1.0a. So, yeah, where was that part about nothing changing with anything you've released under 1.0a? If the license no longer exists as far as you're concerned, that doesn't bar you from doing anything to people that had published anything under 1.0a. You can't get rid of it without affecting everyone that has ever made that content. Now, pages 3 and 4, so it's going to say 1 and 2, because we're now into the actual OGL, the 1.2 guide. And as much as they say that 1.1 was a draft, this is now 1.2. If it was a draft, we could have just had a new version of 1.1. I'm assuming someone was actually crazy enough to sign 1.1. So now, unless they want to deauthorize that, which was more stringent than these rules, they would have to go and deauthorize 1.1. I don't think they want to, which is why this is 1.2. And since 1.1 specifically said you can deauthorize it, or update it, depending on how they want to word that, they could drop anyone under 1.1 and have them under 1.2. But they don't seem to want to. And again, we can't actually see the VTT policy, but they do specifically mention that VTTs need to be in accordance with their virtual tabletop policy, which we can't see yet. Most of the licensed content is talking about what counts as licensable content. Both what falls under the core rules and is now covered under the Creative Commons. Their unlicensed content, which is the stuff covered by this. And, of course, what counts as your content. And they do lay out that they don't have any, copyright on your licensed content. Though it's under some conditions over here. And we'll get to those in a sec. The license itself says, in consideration for your compliance with this license, you may copy, use, modify, and distribute our licensed content around the world as part of your licensed works. This license is perpetual, meaning that it has no set end date. Non-exclusive, meaning that we offer others a license to our licensed content or our unlicensed content under any conditions we choose. And irrevocable, meaning that content licensed under this license can never be withdrawn from the license. Hey, Sunny Eater, welcome. But irrevocable was now retermed. They've described it as something it doesn't necessarily mean. Content licensed under this license can never be withdrawn from the license. But you, and I'm going to show this in a second, can in fact terminate this license right before us. I'll get to that. It's actually on the 3rd page. What you own. And it talks about what is considered yours. It also says that if they come out with anything that looks to be similar to your content, you can't sue them. Okay, Sun Eater, I'm just glad you're here. So, if they have something that looks suspiciously like your content, you are not allowed to sue them for anything except money damages. And, you will not seek or be entitled to injunctive relief. So if they actually did take something that is identical to your content and use it in one of their works, you can't make it so that the court takes away their ability to publish that content. That is what injunctive relief means. If you get an injunction on someone, they can no longer distribute whatever that is. So, like, if you filed for injunctive relief on, say, a photograph, no one can distribute that photograph. So, yeah, they would basically say, oh, we'll give you money, but you can't actually keep us from using it. I think that should belong to the courts. Thank you very much, Wizards. I don't trust you farther than I could kick you. And I can't really kick a company all that far. In any such lawsuit, you must show that we knowingly and intentionally copied your licensed work. Now, that is also very different. I would need some sort of internal documents from, Wizards of the Coast to actually prove that they knowingly and intentionally copied the work. So almost no one could meet this bar, and it is much higher than the actual court requirement. So yeah, they basically don't want to get sued. I know people are sue happy, but no one's been suing Wizards of the Coast over this. During the entire 20 years the original OGL 1.0 was in effect. Or 1.0 for that matter. What they own, we don't really need to talk about that. They've already described what they own and how they're licensing it. You control your content, and there are some limits to that. You must clearly indicate that your licensed work contains our licensed content under this license, either by including the full text of this license, or by applying the Creator Products Badge in compliance with the then current style guidelines. And you may permit the use of your content on any terms that you want. However, if any license you offer to your licensed work is different from the terms of this license, you must include in the licensed work the attribution of our licensed content found in the preamble to the applicable SRD, and make clear that our licensed content included in your licensed work is made available on the terms of this license. Basically, it means that if you include Magic Missile in your game, because they claim Magic Missile, that cannot be used without copying in a slice of the text and explaining that that is under a different license. Now, Section 6, Warranties and Disclaimers. Basically, these are what we have to say that we're agreeing to. First, obviously, we have to have the age and capacity to be bound by a legal document. That's par for the course. You actually don't even need to state that. They do actually add, if you're younger, have had your parent or guardian review the terms and agree to them on your behalf. That is hilarious. Sure. Authority. We have to sign off that we have the authority to enter into this license and perform your obligations. Hey, Edwin, Sue. I hope it's Sue. Welcome. How you doing? No infringement. We have to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that any intellectual property rights to your work do not infringe on any other intellectual property. This is hard to say definitively, because who decides if you actually have the copyrights on something, or another person does, or another entity, I should say, is the court. you're assumed to have license unless something comes up. But this clause right here says basically that if you were sued over your copyrights, someone decided to sue you for a variant of Happy Birthday as a song that you put into your game. Maybe, the orcs sing the birthday song. And yes, it does rule out software or games. VTTs are software, but they're like that a little bit differently. But yeah, it only applies to printed media and static electronic files. We just discussed that. This also, by the way, Section C of Section 6 could actually rule out someone that is work for hire. Like the situation with Star Wars, when they made the Star Wars RPG, they had someone create the RPG for them. So actually, they got into a bit of trouble the first time around anyway, because the company, I think it was already Disney at that point, but I'm not entirely sure, wasn't sure they actually owned all the IP when they went to a D20 system. So, yeah, that could get even Disney in trouble. It's very hard to say without a court ruling on who actually has the rights to something. So, yeah. And if you don't follow these standards, they have the immediate right to terminate your part of the contract. Not theirs, but yours. Yeah. No endorsement. You will not state, suggest, or imply that your licensed works are endorsed or associated with us. That's a trademark thing more than a copyright. I don't know why you would need to include that. That would seem to be stupid. Trademark is a jealous mistress, because trademark, if you don't sue anyone that infringes on it, actually has you lose the trademark. That is not the case with copyright, but it is with trademark. It's the big difference between the two. No illegal conduct. You will not violate the law in any way relating to this license or your licensed works. There really should be a provision here that, as far as you're aware of, under local law, because obviously, if you live in Canada and something that is in your RPG is illegal in Iran, for instance, maybe you have gay marriage, which is illegal there. This could be a big issue right there. Yeah, that is also true, Edwin. Though, again, that's a trademark thing. If you use the name Wizards of the Coast or WotC, and it infringes on anything they consider to be part of their trademark, they can go after you. They don't actually need it here. Separate aspects of the law. And this one is the one that they keep referring to. It's all this crap about an inclusive play experience that they want to protect. But that's not actually what this does. This section F of Part 6 says no hateful content or conduct. You will not include any content in your licensed works that is harmful, discriminatory, illegal, obscene, or harassing, or engaging in conduct that is harmful, discriminatory, illegal, obscene, or harassing, and they have the sole right to decide what content or conduct or content is hateful, and you consent, which means you agree that you will not contest any such determination via any suit or other legal action. And basically, they decide if you fall under any of these things. And because of the engaging in part, they could rule that if you're, gay, that is obscene, and they can terminate your contract immediately. Well, technically, you were given 30 days to rectify being gay. But, So, Edwin, that is true, but, there's a reason that it wasn't included in the old, original OGL 1.0A. It shouldn't need to be here. That's just the thing. Obviously, the original document was 1 page. This is 3. So they're adding definitely a lot of stuff to that. But, yeah. So here's a little story about Section 6F. And I told this on Twitter when I looked at this yesterday. So, without the Open Game License 1.2, you could, well, I should say, not us, but Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro, whoever decides to be the one to sue, could sue someone that makes, I need a name for this thing. Hideous Rape Simulator, which is a tabletop RPG that is using the OGL/SRD content. Right now, if they called it the DnD Rape Simulator, that would be part of trademark law. WotC could already go after them for using the D&D brand without their permission. It doesn't matter if the context is a rape simulator. They can already do that. Now, if it's just called the Hideous Rape Simulator and it uses the rules, you can still go after them. It gets a little more complex, but it's totally doable. It doesn't actually have to be stated, because they still hold the rights to the content. So, even though they give you a license to use it, there are ways to go about that. I am not enough of a lawyer, because I'm not actually a lawyer. I took business law and contract law in school, but never became a lawyer. But, my classes were intended to show this part here and how it works and the what for. Yeah, realistically, there should be a third-party body if you are going to actually have this part. Because if you leave it up to Wizards of the Coast and their sole discretion, it is massively abusable. So, I mean, even the no illegal conduct is a big stretch there. So, say you get arrested for, peeing in public. So you got drunk one night and ended up peeing on the sidewalk. I mean, I've never done it. It's a little harder for women to do that. I have heard it can happen, but I've never seen it myself. But, well, this part, it does not actually say related to your license or their license. It can be anything, even your personal conduct. But if you get arrested for indecent exposure, lewd conduct, any of that actually can be part of this, and they can use that against you. Oh no, you're now not part of what's covered under 1.2. Yeah, it's very broad-reaching. In fact, this is amazingly broad-reaching. This is a total control method. That is why this is here. This is the sole clause that gives them total authority to control who is able to make derivative works. Yeah, it's almost unlimited. I mean, there's maybe someone that can qualify for having never done anything that is discriminatory, illegal, obscene, or harassing. Oh, or harmful. I forgot harmful. Yeah, this is way too broad. Way too broad. I've looked at some lawyers' takes on this. Every single one of them says that this is both too broad and should be held by a third party, because no aspect of this is a good thing to give to a company we really should not be trusting at this point. But yeah, this is my biggest complaint with this, because this still gives them absolute control over who can and cannot use it. And there's no limits put in place as to what they determine. We can't sue them over it. We're not allowed to contest it by any legal action. And it's up to their sole discretion to decide what conduct is considered under it. And yes, as far as it goes, since they don't limit the scope, if you have a racist bad guy in your story, you can get in trouble under this. Because literally, there are no limits. Yeah, that's why this clause is considered just nuts by everyone legally who looks at it. Well, I shouldn't say that totally. There are some people with bias. I actually had the PR person for Epic Games find my early comment on the OGL 1.2 release yesterday, and he claimed that this is perfectly normal in any modern legal document. No, maybe terms of service. TOSs are questionably legal in a lot of parts of the US, and Europe definitely has some issues about them. They're usually stupidly broad, much broader than would normally be allowed. So, yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest issues I have, and most people have, with this document. The other big one being the virtual tabletop policy, which we'll get into what little they tell us about it. It does say that. So, it says that this is the Wizards of the Coast virtual tabletop policy, or at least a draft of it. But this is not a legal document. So, this is a FAQ, an FAQ. So we'll get into that in a little bit. That's the other big thing here. Modification or termination. We may only modify the provisions of this license identifying the attribution required under Section 5 and the notice provision of Section 9A. And 9A is down here in the miscellaneous. But in the miscellaneous is going to be a catch here too. And I'll get into that in a sec. But we may immediately terminate your license if you infringe on our intellectual property, bring an action challenging our ownership, trademarks or patents, violate any law in relation to your activities under this license, or violate Section 6F. So yeah, this one directly is linked in here. Not any of these others, but 6F, definitely. Because that's all they need. That's absolute control in their pocket, right there. And we may terminate your license if you breach any other term in this license and do not cure that breach within 30 days of notice of your breach. The rest is just normal legalese until we get to the miscellaneous part. We may notify you by any email or physical address we can locate for you. Only if we cannot locate your email or physical address after a reasonable search, notice via a public channel is sufficient. I guess that means slapping it on their website or putting it in their forums. They really don't say. And they let you send them emails to update us on your own email or physical address. Which I guess is nice of them. Sure. I just find that funny. Having been in IT as a network admin, this box probably no one reads. It is totally there to be a bin that nothing goes in, but they could look if they ever felt like it. Just in case. Entire agreement and disclaimer of reliance. This license governs your use of our licensed content. This license consists only of the terms expressly included herein. Blah blah blah. Yeah, pretty much. And that's just someone using search in the mailbox. Nope, couldn't find anything. Reasonable search done. Goodbye. No waiver of rights. This one, by the way, seems to be a trademark catch. Because of the whole using their badges thing, which isn't actually part of the OGL itself, I assume that is why they put this in here. But if we fail to exercise any right we have under this license, that failure will not prevent us from exercising that right in the future. Oh, there's another aspect of this. I'd assume it's because of the branding first, but secondly, this means that even if you pee on the sidewalk and get arrested for indecent exposure, they don't have to take away your access to the license immediately. They can do it in 2 years when you have a great idea in an RPG. Yeah, it's at their sole discretion. So they can just bank away anything they want to use. Which is crazy sauce. Severability. If any part of this license is held to be unenforceable or invalid for any reason, Wizards may declare the entire license void, either as between it and the party that obtained the ruling, or in its entirety. So, basically, if, Paizo takes them to court, they can now say, oh, 1.2 is, no longer valid. Entirely. So, for instance, well, actually, this right here goes right around to the whole part about it being irrevocable. Yeah, irrevocable here. Because it's definitely revocable. You just put a clause to sever it right here. And Edwin. Yes. 9C would do that. So would several. Hello again, Sun Eater. Welcome back. You've missed a bit. We've been covering stuff. This is another questionable one. This clause here, which is strangely in the miscellaneous, even though it should be up here somewhere, says that you waive any ability to be part of a class action. So, there were already some publishers who got together wanting to dispute the 1.1 draft, as they call it now. But they did it as a class action because no single party actually had the money to take Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro to court. Both companies, both separately and together, have a incredibly large war fund to do legal actions. This right here would mean their competitors, or anyone that is under this particular policy, waives the ability to group together to sue them, which gives them unilaterally an advantage in court. It also says that you agreed to be held and governed under the laws of the state of Washington. So if, say, me in Pennsylvania wanted to sue them, I would have to travel across the country and get a lawyer from the state of Washington to sue them. So, yeah. It's great if you're a big company, but, so Sun Eater, we're into the part about what they make it so we can't do. Well, 9D, is about what us, as people who are using the policy or license, are required to do. This is not 6 in general. This whole section is not about what Wizards of the Coast does. This is our requirements. So, yeah. A little bit different. I mean, they could say that this is void. Well, obviously. I mean, the whole part about section 9 at 60. Oh, wait, 90. Sorry. I was looking and thinking about the wrong part. I have my dyslexic moments. Sorry. And oddly, they're talking about similar things, which makes it even worse. But so, 9D, the severability clause. This gives them the option to just get rid of 1.2 anytime they want, figuring anyone has held them to a legal action, which is most likely why they would want to change it. So, and that means just throwing it out and creating any new thing they might want to replace it, whether that's an OGL or something different. Severability in general basically lets them decide if in the future they just don't want to do an OGL. And since it obviously and already deauthorizes the 1.0A, that's sort of an issue. You would never want to actually base a company on this. Oh, and you waive a jury trial as well. So any disputes, claims, or causes of action related or arising from the license, you can't get a jury trial in the US. This one is ironic. Review by counsel. You should seek advice by counsel to make sure you understand this license. Yes, we should. I mean, I actually looked at some lawyers' takes on this before I even decided to talk about it. So yes, and those aren't official. No lawyer would ever post their official response, but yes, anytime someone manages to get out from under their thumb, they can sever the whole thing and end the playground for everyone. Yes, that is what that does. So yeah, some definite issues there. Oh, and by the way, lawyers can have different takes on things. I've heard several lawyers discussing various aspects of things. Like, some lawyers said that revoking 1.0A isn't even valid legally. However, that's actually for a court to decide. They don't usually say that part out loud, but yes, just saying that they can't actually revoke it means nothing. Don't use that as legal advice. Please, don't. Because a court would have to decide. Until a court decides, that is technically true, but the court will hold that Wizards of the Coast can until a actual court decides on it. And this is not a legal document, but this is apparently what we get for their virtual tabletop policy. So let's hop into that. They say they're big fans of VTTs. So of course, as big fans, they want to put it on policy. The irony there is not lost on me. Why does Wizards need a VTT policy? We support the role VTTs play in the tabletop space, especially when we're still sort of in a pandemic. And people should realistically cut down on physical meetups whenever they can. But they're banking on those non-physical meetups. I'll talk about that in a sec. But the ability to game remotely means more people can game, and it's wonderful that people thousands of miles apart can share a space, as though sitting around a table. But as VTTs advance, their functionality will raise tricky questions. Where's the line between a VTT and a video game? And this right here is hilarious. The big difference between a VTT and a video game is AI. In a game, there is no DM or GM. There is the game, which is a set of rules that function as an expert system to move you and encourage you between one thing and another. In a VTT, there is a GM or DM who is the rules lawyer for their table and is the one that helps facilitate the story. Which this part is super ironic when we had internal word that Wizards of the Coast wanted to create AI DMs that you could buy as part of a monthly fee to Wizards Beyond D&D Beyond's subscription system. So yeah, they seem to want to break that barrier themselves in very strange ways. I don't think any AI could actually facilitate the role of a virtual GM. Yes, 9H should actually be what anyone should do. There shouldn't really be a question about 9H. If you're going to be holding to a legal document, for the love of the goddess, please go talk to an actual lawyer. Or several. Especially with how slimy this whole thing is. Please make it multiples. Especially because lawyers can have differing opinions. But yeah, especially in the US, not knowing the law is not a way out of the law. If you enter into a contract, you're assumed to understand the contract, and you can't claim that a failure to understand keeps you from knowing. Because apparently they used to do that in the old days. So, yeah, there's a legal policy, I forget the term for it, here in the US, that makes it so even if you don't actually understand what you're signing, you can still be held to it. It probably actually goes back to the days of slavery here, and the after effects, where, especially for former slaves, most of them couldn't initially read and write. And I know the very bigoted people would definitely want to hold anything signed against those who could not understand the documents, and usually not afford a lawyer. So maybe this is for international audiences, but it should always be the case that you get anything reviewed, regardless of country of origin or current country you live in. But yes, obviously, having done my business degree and having taken classes on this type of law, I do know something about this subject. I'm not just talking out my ass. But, yeah. Switching back. When does a VTT become more than just a replacement for the traditional tabletop? Those questions require thoughtful answers. Answering them will take time, and we want this policy to reflect your input. So we'll be asking for feedback and talking to you about our goals as that discussion advances and new technology emerges. And again, this is not a legal document part. here on page 6. This virtual tabletop policy is not actually a policy. There's no legalese here. It is just some weird FAQ in disguise. You would never be legally bound to this. So, what is permitted under this policy? Using VTTs that replicate the experience of sitting around the table playing D&D with your friends. So displaying static SRD content is just fine. Because it's just like looking in a source book. You can put the text of Magic Missile up in your VTT and use it to calculate and apply damage to your target. The automating Magic Missile's damage to replace manually rolling and calculating is also fine. The VTT can apply Magic Missile's 1d4 plus 1 damage automatically to your target's hit points. I would hope so. Those are all things that can be replicated by hand. You do not have to manually calculate and track the damage. Yes, that is the entire point of using a computer to do that. What isn't permitted are features that don't replicate your dining room table's storytelling. If you replace your imagination with an animation of the Magic Missile streaking across the board to strike your target, or your VTT integrates our content into an NFT, why, Wizards, you are supporters of NFTs, just not us making them. VTTs don't care about your NF freaking T's. I'm sorry. I'll get a hold of myself. That is just hilarious. The company totally supports NFTs. That is not... Yeah, that's not the tabletop experience. Yes, that is not... NFTs are not part of the frickin' tabletop experience. Anyone who thinks it is has crazy sized holes in their head. Their brains are obviously dribbling out. That is not more like a video game, though. Video games should not have NFTs either. Every single NFT video game fails utterly. I have not seen one that has ever succeeded. They're usually big giant scams. However, this animation of Magic Missile streaking across the board, yeah, that's simple math. That is simple math. Graphics are just really advanced math calculations. There is no reason you can't animate Magic Missile. In fact, they don't even claim to own what Magic Missile looks like. So how can an animation, a visual work, count on something that is Magic Missile, which you say you don't know what it looks like because you don't own any copyright or trademark to it? Well, except the name. They own the name Magic Missile. Which is why in my own game, a very similar spell is called Arcane Missile. I could call it Arcane Bolts. I could call it anything I felt like. It's just the term Magic Missile can't be used. But let's go on. The absurdity continues. May I make my VTT owlbear token look like the one from the monster manual? No, we've never licensed visual depictions of our content under the OGL, just the text of the SRD. That hasn't changed. Basically what they're saying is that they don't give you a license to use the image that they had. Sorry, some coughing. Created for their monster manual. You can create a creature called an owlbear with a stat block from the SRD. You cannot copy any of our owlbear depictions. But if you've drawn your own unique owlbear, or someone else did, you can use it. Referencing back up here, if we animate something and we call it Magic Missile, does that make it Magic Missile D&D? Or more specifically, Wizards. Does that make it a Magic Missile? Even though you say you don't license your visual depictions, and any depiction is just your own take on what that thing looks like. So, if we can do this, why can't we do this? That is a very good question. I would really like them to explain. What about OGL 1.2? Does this policy apply to that? Yes, you can upload your already licensed content to a VTT, but you just deauthorized it. If you don't have a valid license, you actually can't legally use that content. You didn't sunset it, you deauthorized it. Which we're still in debate you can actually do, because a court would have to decide. So, this is just, did they not read their own text? Obviously, whoever wrote this did not understand the earlier text. I own or operate a VTT. How does this affect me? If you are a VTT owner or operator who supports OGL products on your platform, and I don't know many that do. Most have specific agreements with you. Roll20 does. I mean, they sell your licensed works. And when they sell it, we don't even get like a PDF copy, even though it costs just as much as buying it directly from you. I mean, that's the one I tend to use. I do have another. I have Tailspire. If we want to look in my Steam library for a second. Right here is Tailspire, which looks amazingly like their their Unreal Engine powered take on it. I'll fire this up and actually show you what it looks like and why it feels so similar at the end of this. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are some I definitely have never used. I'm not sure how Tailspire works. Their content is more generic. Maybe they are trying to use the OGL 1.0. I just don't know. I'm not even sure they really consider themselves a virtual tabletop exactly. And yes, they talk a lot about it potentially changing. I would hope. I still don't get how this and this go together. Those two seem to be at odds. But yes, those are definitely my takes on how all this works. If you missed the earlier parts, we did go through this entire thing, top to bottom, even back and forth a couple of times. We've talked about their official discussions, both of them. We've talked about what Paizo did. So I think, having done that, we're going to fire up Tailspire. I don't know what sort of licensing terms they might actually show in here. This is the closest I know of a system that does something like OGL content. It doesn't say anything about the OGL. And boy, is that loud. I'm sorry. I can't independently adjust it unless I can figure out where the heck the thing is. Oh, there we go. Menu volume. Alright, that's better. Sure, we'll create a new campaign. We'll call it Test. I want to see... Oh, I had... Okay, you can see I've just dealt with this so much. Alright, well, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Join campaign. Okay. Wow. Okay, play. That's what I'm looking for. I've not gone too far into it. I look at it once in a while. I'm curious if they actually even say anything about any licensing. Let's make some ground. I don't have any sort of pre-existing module. And this looks horrible. Can I fix these? Sort of. Oh, no. Yes? No. It's a little hard to work with. Yeah, I can spin. That would be easier. It works a lot better when you're looking in the right direction. But I don't see anywhere where they, like... list any sort of framework that they're under. They do animate certain things. And they do have creatures. I don't know why it's not quite rendering like normal. Huh. You can see I use this so much. So much. I know. There are certain things... Oh. Creature controls. Oh, I'm in build mode. That did not seem to help. Why can't I move the mini? I'm sorry. I just do not work a lot on this. I've wanted to look into it before. And I know there's ways to do it. Yeah, I would assume. I don't think they use anything like... I don't think they have the holders. No. It just defaults to boulder. Mind Flare? Which defaults to Minotaur. So yeah, I don't think there's spells. Maybe there is. Okay, I just don't think I understand how to do it. Yeah. But yeah, you don't get character sheets in here. You can roll dice. I know that is totally a thing. I don't recall how, but, I'm sure somewhere in here. And, I mean, you can name custom stats, but there's no, like, anything really to describe, like, the monsters. It's a very primitive framework. You would basically want to have something like Roll20 open. In fact, when I used to play in a campaign that used Tailspire, he shared his screen with us. And we ran off of Roll20. I actually hosted the campaign for that. The DM did not. Because I had a test campaign. And we just used my test campaign to hold our character sheets. And rolled the dice. The DM would roll the dice in here. But we would roll the dice straight from our sheets. And he had, I guess, a second screen up. But yeah, this is the closest thing I could think of to... Oh, okay, I just had to hit escape. I guess. Oh, yes. Status emotes. He can wiggle. Morphs. I can morph him into something? I guess. No thanks. I know somewhere. Oh, and you can give him stats and HP. Though, obviously, those aren't defined. Oh. Hiding is kind of funny. But yeah, this is probably... this is made in Unity. This is probably as close to what they're creating as I've seen. Most VTTs are vastly different. I mean, we've seen that. We can come into Roll20. Roll20 is not SRD. No part of it is. I have to buy, and in fact I have, to make this work. I don't need your ad. My marketplace items. Come on. You can see everything I've had to buy. The monster manual, the player's handbook, the essentials kits, the player's handbook, all the different modules and campaigns. Everything I've had to buy. They don't just get to use this. I actually have to buy it. And there's an arranged contract to do that. I know they have access. I mean, that's just default. If I go in here and search for damage, you can see over here the source for it. That didn't list it. I'm trying to think of something specific that'd be in the SRD. But I have seen SRD listed before. But yeah, I mean, they can replicate that. There's nothing to keep them from doing that under 1.0a, and even the new one, there's still none. They don't do any... I mean, there are spell effects, sort of. I can make beams. Weird acid beams. I guess technically this is a magic missile. I don't even know if you guys can see that. It's a few colored dots that move around on the screen. That's what they call a magic missile. I wonder what the others look like. Yeah, about the same. Actually, I wonder if I can make that bigger. Maybe if I zoom in, you can see. No, you don't really get to see it any better. That one is amazingly hard to see. Fire shows up a little bit. But those animations seem to be against their policy, because the one was called a magic missile. You can make custom effects. I don't know how. I can make fiery explosions. Math. Things like this. I was doing this in my high school computer lab. In BASIC. It actually looked a lot like that. Maybe they're using BASIC. I don't know. But apparently, Wizards of the Coast has a big issue about animating spell effects. And how that's gaming it. Yeah, theoretically, that is actually something they're against. But I know Roll20 definitely has a special contract. I've looked at some other systems too. Like Alchemy. I don't know if you've ever seen Alchemy. We'll pull up the Game Master demo. This is the map, which is kind of awkward. This does not look like a map to me. I know this must be more Theater of the Mind. I know one of these has... Oh, I have to move to a scene. Oh, yeah, here we go. Can I add more than one? No. I can't even add more than one NPC at a time. And there's no, like, tactical map in this. It's more for Theater of the Mind. Alright, let's back out of that. Yeah, I know in the compendium is the SRD. I just don't know how to get pages for it specifically to come up. If I actually look at somewhere here. Okay, you can look at the compendium outside. I wonder if they show the SRDs separately. I don't think so. I know pages list as SRD, so you can actually see it if it is in there. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how you'd even get there. And if you're hungry, Sun Eater, go eat. Go eat. I mean, you can watch and eat. Totally a thing. But yeah, I just don't see... I mean, obviously, their VTT is meant to be... in fact, let me pull up... Do I still have... I think I closed the window. We'll switch over to this one. DnD, VTT, trailer? I know they've showed it off.
Dungeons and Dragons.
No, don't play the audio. I'm just looking for your VTT. I know it's in here. That's all I want. I think that's it. A little more? Yes. This is what their VTT looks like. It's supposed to be made in Unreal Engine. As you can see, it looks amazingly like Tailspire. Just with fancier graphics. And some animations, apparently. And it seems the whole VTT policy is referring back to them wanting absolute control of the market for when this releases. That is the only thing we can come up with for why they are specific about VTTs. They want theirs to be the most advanced and to be the only one that's allowed to be that advanced. But it's still very funny. Oh, by the way, Wizards specifically said they were not working on AI GMs or DMs. Though insiders definitely have said they are, so. Yeah, this is all meant to have run on D&D Beyond with a subscription. We know that part. Having a D&D Beyond subscription would give you access to this. And it does look neat, sure. But I don't know. I already know there are plenty of others. Yeah, that was the thing. It was integrated with D&D Beyond, so you had to have a subscription to use it. I don't know of some sort of partnership with Roll20. But, yeah, they specifically, right here, talk about D&D Beyond. And supposedly, it needed a subscription. I don't know for sure the details. But no, definitely not for free. I don't know any game company crazy enough to do it for free. To actually create a VTT like that in Unreal Engine, you're looking at probably a team of at least 20 designers, and probably about 4 years. That's a lot of money paid for something that would be free. Most of D&D Beyond isn't free. I don't even know what on D&D Beyond is free. I've never had a account. Okay, well, I'd have to create an account to even know. I'd rather not, especially at this point. So, yeah. Okay, so basic rules, probably the SRD, and 6 characters. I've never actually used D&D Beyond, other than for, like, Unearthed Arcana. So, yeah, it's lost on me. I was was using wikis like this to run my campaigns for the longest time. Obviously not a virtual tabletop. But even this, you can make character sheets. And in fact, I think I did early on. Yeah. Nice little character sheets. I didn't actually put any of their stats in, but I created pages for them. Sure. But yeah, that's what I was doing until Roll20 for my own campaigns. So, but I think we've gotten a little bit distracted and off topic. But I think we did cover virtual tabletops pretty well. I think that also covers most of the current state of D&D and some of the issues. Yeah, Artificer is not in the SRD, so I would not expect it to be in there. In fact, that was a big issue for a long time. Even under 1.0a, you couldn't create like a Artificer subclass, which is why there are only really a couple of official subclasses for it, because they weren't in the SRD. So you couldn't really legally, unless you were part of the DM's Guild, make a subclass for the Artificer. I mean, as a player, you could probably even use Roll20. You could create a free campaign on there. Again, you'd only get certain access to, like, SRD content, I think. I'll show you sort of, like... Oh, did I get rid of it? I think oh, no. Nakami testing, my test campaign. Actually, I don't want to fire it up. The Character Mancer walks you through it. It's like doing it in a game, really. They're very good at it. Until I started making custom characters, I learned the ropes using the Character Mancer. But yeah, at that point, I think we're kind of pretty far off topic. I think I might end here. A little bit shorter than normal. Let me see if there's anyone for us to raid. There are a few people we can raid. You know what? I have never had a chance to raid Glitter. So, let's raid Glitter. Sorry if I heard part of your stream. I was just trying to load the page up. Alright, so, I will do something that is not D&D tomorrow. I'm not sure what. This has been just so much on my mind lately that I keep having to make content that is talking about it. And I already did my Celestia RPG creation stream the other day, so I probably won't do that tomorrow. Even though I am still working on Celestia RPG, my own TTRPG system. Yeah, so, I will think of something. Sunday night is Celestia, the original RPG campaign, Not the RPG itself, but the campaign. They should be back, and should be level 9 at this point. So they're gonna have some tough adventures. But, yeah, I think that's the end for now. So, have fun, take care, and I'll see you later. Bye.